Oh, I know, right, you got your... Reconvening the Planning Commission meeting, March 10th. Mr. Tuno's not here yet, but I'm sure he'll join us soon. So we are now in the review of the General Plan Technical Background Report, and Mr. Maurer is just going to give us a summary of where we're going with this.
Right, well, we reviewed this back in August and September. I think we had several different meetings on this, a lot of discussion, a lot of edits and changes. We took it back, spent a great deal of time updating a lot of the information, adding additional information where it was necessary. I'd like to reiterate, this is a background report. There's no policy language that's in here. It's just simply trying to accumulate some of the information that we based our recommended policy and goal language on. It will change again. There's stuff that was updated a year or two ago that will probably be updated again before we adopt the final general plan. We can always be looking at that information, but this is just sort of an accumulation of some of the things that, or hopefully all of the things, most of the things that are listed as things we should look at when we are updating our general plan as provided in government code. It's okay, here it is, let's have it available and handy. But these are constantly changing documents. It's a municipal services report, summary of MSRs from 2012, I believe. That's probably going to come up again in the next couple of years. So this is a snapshot in time. Most available information that we have today, or we've had in the last, say, 6 months. Hopefully we've provide the information there if anyone needs to look at it that helps in formulating our goals and policies. We did provide some additional information, particularly in relationship to the circulation element, and all of the water and sewer service information was updated. Amy Augustine of Augustine Planning Associates put a huge effort into doing this work, and I really appreciate her help on this. Some changes because of just the size of the document, and particularly electronically, we pulled out the mining maps and put that as a separate appendix. Hopefully it'll make it a little easier for people to download the document if they want to. We also took out there was a prior version of the Integrated Hazard Management Plan. The hazard plan that the county just adopted a few months ago, and I'm just drawing a blank on the name of it right now. Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. Thank you.
The LHMP.
LHMP that the county just updated and adopted last fall. There was a complete new list of facilities that are the brain and stomach is just not working together after lunch or something here. List of critical facilities that we're required to have. There was a several page list that was in the prior version of this document. The most recent version of it is like 20-some pages long. And it seemed as though since we are required to incorporate the LHMP into the general plan, which will be coming forward in the next couple of months, it didn't seem necessary to repeat it. There's a reference to it. You can look at it online. So that information is available. But rather than reprint it in another document, you can go directly to that document to see that list of critical facilities. And it identifies fire stations, hospitals, water treatment facilities that are in high fire hazard or flood hazard or other hazard areas that in an emergency we need to be careful of. We want to consider the fact that we've got this water treatment plant that's in a flood zone, and if we're having a flooding issue, what's going to happen to the water if floodwaters get into that treatment facility and either shut it down or contaminate it somehow. So those are things that we need to look at in relation to the LHMP and consider changes to those. You know, if we have a fire station in a high fire hazard area, what happens when there's a fire there? How do the people get to their equipment to be able to help put out the fire? So those kinds of things that you look at as far as the critical areas or critical facilities. So that is not included in this version, but it's available through the recently adopted LHMP. Besides that, I'm hoping that we've addressed the concerns you guys had earlier, updated the information where it was, and we can get through this in about 20 minutes, you think?
Probably.
One quick question on
Yes.
what you just said. The prior draft at pages 135 to 137 had a listing of Table 22, Safety, Calaveras County Essential Public Facilities. Is
Yes.
that what you were just
That's what I
referring
was
to?
referring to, yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of Peter right now? No?
Questions, no, just I have very few little,
Well, let's just start whoever, just say where you would like to begin, and if someone's got one prior to that, then we'll go
I
there.
have a question about the table on 21, airport land use.
Okay, I'm on 14 or 15. So
Why don't you back up to 14 then, at least?
Okay.
Okay, kind of a general question. There are projections of units that will be needed by year 2035. And if I understand how this was done, there's an assumption that the ratio of residents to non-residents as of 2010 will remain constant. And that's how you got to the number for the vacant or non-resident units.
Right,
That's correct?
that's correct.
I guess, do you think that's the best assumption can be made?
Given the growth projections that we have, yes. I think that, we'll see, I'm hoping we'll see a little uptick in activity in the county over the next few years as the economy recovers and maybe Calaveras County catches up with the rest of the state. At the same time, we have an aging population, and so we're probably going to see more retirees, particularly more retirees from out of the area, maybe having a second home someplace. So I think that, yes, anything else would be pretty speculative, so I think our safest bet is, so let's look at what's the current distribution now. We haven't seen any significant changes over time in recent years of the change in split between occupied and second homes or vacant units. And so it seems to be the safest estimate to look at these things. Again, if things change dramatically, then we need to go back and revisit some of this information. And we will have to do a regular update on our housing element. And so in a few years, we'll be looking at these numbers again, and if we see that there's a change that signifies something different's going on, then we'll need to consider that. But I think as far as right now, our assumption is this is as safe as any. Anytime you look into the future 20 years, it's guesswork, but it's hopefully educated guesswork.
Thank you.
On 30, just a question as to the tables and the color coding. Is there any significant changes from whatever was the previous version of this? This is, pardon me, page 21, I'm sorry. 21, I'm sorry.
This is the same. This
It's
has
the
not
same.
changed, yes.
Okay, then my next one is 30. Beating Commissioner Rooster to the draw, under future road alignments, the county has identified 2 should be T-double-O, W-O. And the last sentence of that paragraph mentions an alternative 2. Where would I read about alternative 1?
There was a series of documents that was presented to the board a couple months ago, where the board selected alternative 2, and there was a packet of different alternatives that were proposed.
Well, do we need to discuss that, or was it dismissed? In favor of 2?
I believe it was dismissed in favor of 2.
Fine,
Yeah.
that's all I needed.
There were several alternatives. That was one that was selected. It was forwarded on to...
Preferred by the county, that's what you
Preferred
mean
by
by
the
that?
COGI, yes. Yes.
Okay. Under level of service, last paragraph, fourth line from the bottom, and providing development to occur, I think you mean allowing.
What line?
Fourth line from the bottom, not the sentence,
there.
but the end of the previous sentence. You got that?
The balance between maintaining reasonable levels and allowing, yeah, that probably a better word.
And I have nothing else until 77.
41, I have a typo. The second bullet point, last underlined sentence.
Included?
Included.
Page 41, the underlined sentence at the end of the second bullet point, rangeland is include in the field. And my next question is on page 43. And it has to do with the interplay between the numbers, the 2014 value numbers for cattle and calves and sheep and lambs in the top part of the table, and the numbers for irrigated pasture and rangeland in the section entitled Field Crops in the third part of the table. And I'm wondering whether or not there's a double count here, because one would think that irrigated pasture and rangeland would wind up being utilized by the cattle and calves and sheep and lambs, and the value of that would be reflected in the sales of those animals, unless what's happening is the irrigated pasture and rangeland is calculating or estimating the value of pasture and rangeland that is occupied by animals that are not sold in the county and therefore not counted in cattle and calves and sheep and goats.
I don't believe that it is that refined. It is a total value of rangeland for the purpose of, or, of irrigated pasture or other, crop. True that the cattle and cows and other livestock utilize that, but it's the value that rancher A may pay to rangeland owner B for that value of that irrigated pasture. So it's just the value of the grass and hay by itself. So there are landowners that grow that crop and then lease it out to some other person. So that value is what's calculated there. The value of the animals themselves are separate. There's an input that goes into that, obviously, and a cost associated with leasing land for grazing. But it's the separate value of the grass or the pasture itself that's paid for. So someone who maybe someone who is leasing the land, or who leases the land out to someone else, that's his value of the income received from that product.
Does wastewater spray fields enter into that?
I don't know.
Well,
These are just simply the reports that we get from the agricultural department. And there's a methodology that they use to calculate that figure. And to the best of my knowledge, they calculate it separately because it could be that it's used by out-of-county producers, but not necessarily so. So there's the value of the livestock itself, which I don't know if that's a gross value or a net value. I imagine
Yeah,
it's
well,
gross.
that's the question, yeah.
And so the gross value of the sale of the calves go into, all of it includes all the inputs. You're paying for grain, you're paying for, all the different, costs associated with it, including the cost of eating someone else's grass. That person that's growing the grass has an income, and that's what's reflected in that figure. Strictly the income from the grass, from leasing or sale of the hay or pasture or rangeland itself. So probably someone who grazes his or her own cattle on their land wouldn't necessarily report income for having rangeland or irrigated pasture. But someone who leases out to someone else would report that as income. So it may skew the numbers a little bit.
But they're skewed the other way in the other sense. They're skewed backwards. The skewing, if anything, would it not be true that most people who have the land also are raising the cows, where the lease out is the exception to that?
I would think so.
And maybe a rancher would understand that.
And if you want, I could talk to Kevin and maybe just send a informational email to everyone that says, here's how this is calculated. These are just simply reflection of the crop reports that are presented to us.
My only concern is whether there's an inadvertent doubling up here that overstates the value of what's being produced, because the gross value of what gets sold is livestock. Had better cover the cost of the feed or the rancher's going to go broke. And so the cost of the feed should be reflected in those gross sales numbers, if it's the same livestock grazing the same ground. Whatever the numbers turn out to be, they are, but I just don't want to have something that may be misleading in here, that's all. And there is quite a bit of leased ground in Calaveras County, is my belief, in the cattle business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else until page 85.
I just, on page 44, I'm just looking at these numbers from 2002, we go to 13 million in timber production, down to 340,000 from 2014, and I understand that is a reflection of the fire, at the rim fire in Tuolumne County. But could it really be millions and millions and millions? Does that number look right to you? I mean, in 2013, we did almost 7 million, and then 340,000 in 14. That's a pretty extreme.
Well, the only thing I know about that is that I think I heard that SPI pulled their crews and sent them to Tuolumne.
Okay, because there is a footnote in here saying because of the Butte Fire, it is possible that the reverse in the trend could occur here.
Because they jumped right on their salvage logging, SPI did over in Tuolumne, whereas the Forest Service took like a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
what was the next page?
I think David had one.
I have a 77. One-upping Commissioner Wooster yet again in the last paragraph there, the critical habitats paragraph in the third or fourth to the last sentence, as stated. I think you mean identified, not
Yeah.
identified. And then I have an 86, not until then.
Okay, I have an 85 and 86, but it's the same question on both pages. And it has to do with the two charts on the Calaveras County attainment status designations. on page 85 in the air quality data summary. For San Andres Gold Strike Road on page 86. And they both refer to the source
Yes.
being a California Air Resources Board website, I guess.
I have the same note.
Access November 2011, and the question is, can that be accessed at any time? And if it's been accessed since then, does it show anything different?
Well, let me add to Commissioner Wooster's note, because mine had to do with footnote 9, the California Climate Change Center as a reference, and I'm trying to find where footnote 9 is in the text. Oh, in the paragraph just above greenhouse gases. So my question, and I think it relates to Commissioner Wooster's, is why that particular reference was picked. That source. Of all the sources on that subject, was there a reason for that?
Okay, so first to answer Kelly's questions, yes, that can be accessed at any time. I will take a look at that website and see if anything's changed. And then, David, your question was the footnote 9. I don't know why the original consultant who prepared this document initially chose that.
Here's my take on that, and this is why I asked the question, Peter. Footnote 9 references these projected increases in temperature 4.7 to 10.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is a 2006 source document. And I believe in that time frame, the source, I believe this corresponds with what has become known as the hockey stick scenario, since discredited. I'm pretty sure that's where that comes from, because the time frame is right on. I think it's just a lingering footnote, Peter. I think that's how it got in there, because when this process was started, that was that year.
2007, yeah.
And so that was new then. And I believe you'll find that that's what that's talking about.
Okay.
And that's what it's relying on, that scenario that came out of, I forget the gentleman's name, the scientist, but
Would that question apply to footnote 10 as well?
could be. It could be that the so-called climate action team, same year, is relying on the same data.
What would you like me to do with this section?
I would like to know if there's a more reliable, more recent reference to temperature projections, and if so, what are they? And if there are multiple resources that have multiple projections, even wildly divergent from one another, then we need to take a look at that paragraph, the text of that paragraph, and so indicate that projections are widely variant on this subject,
Okay,
if indeed they are.
all right.
But I will add to that I went online, and this is a State Department, California webpage from the Department of Water Resources. Let's see, I don't have a, oh, here's 2015, June 2015, so fairly recently. It's page 5 of a document entitled, "What Does the Future Hold?" And there's a paragraph on temperature projections with a range of 2060 to 69, where the California Climate Change Center, I believe, went out 100 years. This one doesn't attempt to do that, probably wisely so. Attempts to go out another 50 years or more, and 50-some years. It has a temperature projection increase of 3.4 to 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit. These versus the years 85, the decade 85 to 94. So that alone is significantly different than this other California resource. And it's 9 years newer. And there is no footnote on the webpage referencing where that number came from. But suffice it to say, the numbers are radically different on two California sources, 9 years apart. So my suggestion is that if you look farther, you will find even greater variations in projections depending on the source. Would you like this?
That'd be great.
And I believe that's it from me.
I have one question on 88, under scenic highways and or scenic resources. I can see all of these areas, but why would the Dorrington Fire Station be a scenic resource? I mean, it's not that old. It was built and it's hunky and ugly. It's a metal building.
Yeah,
But maybe that's scenic to someone else, just not me. I don't know.
these aren't necessarily scenic, these are points of interest.
Oh,
Why that's
okay.
considered a
Doesn't
point of
say
interest,
scenic.
I don't know. We can strike it. It probably was something that came from the list from the document that created that scenic byway.
Well, you
Of
can
whatever
go
reason-
see it, but it's not staffed.
Yeah.
You mean the tour bus doesn't stop there?
I just think it's odd. I mean, unless there's a better reference for it being in there,
Yeah.
I can't, I don't know, just thought I'd ask. And then, I just had one more question.
On your left, ladies and gentlemen, the
Yeah.
Dorrington Fire Station.
Unless they're referencing, no, because that's the forestry, it's not,
Yeah, you know, I have no idea. I mean, the Spicer Snow Park, you know, it's points of interest, and I'm guessing that's something that when the Forest Service created the scenic byway designation,
well, I'm very proud of our fire department, so, I mean,
I'll leave it in
they
there.
just listed a bunch of things that were sort of in that stretch of
yeah, that
highway.
needs to be scratched, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm probably scratching that.
That's kind of odd. There was one on,
I've got another one on 88. In the center of the page, there's a sentence that says, "This section documents 3 components of Calaveras County scenic character as follows," and there follows 3 bullet points: 1 scenic highways, 1 rural landscape, 1 community character. I see the scenic highways one, but when I go to page 93 on my copy, the one about rural landscapes is deleted, and the one about community character is deleted. And so something has to come in or something has to go out.
I think it would be best just to strike that last sentence in those 3 bullets.
I think so too.
And we've addressed, the scenic resources in the conservation open space element. We went through quite a bit of discussion on that issue. Some of this original discussion on page 93 didn't really add anything. It was just sort of a verbiage it seemed like almost filler to me. So I think if we removed that, didn't think it was necessary, and didn't go back and realize that we'd referenced that material up here. So I think if we just strike that, that'd be fine.
Okay, on page 92, which is a map entitled Calaveras County Scenic Roadways Designation, there is under the legend, it says, among other things, County Designated Scenic Highway, which appears to take in all of Highway 49 and Highway 4 from the western county line to Murphy's. And I don't see any text that tells us what a county designated scenic highway represents, what its significance is. And so I think if we're going to show it on a map, we should probably explain to people what it means.
I would agree.
That's good. So on page 104, we had talked about the historical landmarks in the county. Okay. 104. Did I jump ahead, anybody?
I have 101.
101. Okay, thank you.
101, the second full paragraph, there's a sentence that begins, "In Calaveras County, the old Miwok villages that are known to anthropologists were clustered along the McCallany, Calaveras, and Stanislaus River drainages." I think that this subject was discussed when we were dealing with cultural resources in the plan itself, and
I think we decided
Julia Costello.
we had concern about that, and we struck that sentence, similar sentence from the plan itself. I think we just delete that whole sentence, because I think the understanding is that they were pretty much everywhere. They weren't just clustered along the drainages, they were everywhere. The major river drainages, they were anywhere where there was water and food available.
Okay.
Well, did we replace it with a sentence to the effect that they were scattered throughout, or was it just appropriate to strike it, or to replace it with a, how widespread were they in the county, kind of a sentence?
I don't think it's necessary. I think that the fact that we really talk about, New York traditionally occupied a large portion of central Sierra Nevada range, adjacent foothills, and a portion, so we talk about they were throughout the county. So I think that in the beginning of this section on ethnographic setting, it talks about they were widespread throughout the Sierra Nevada, Central Valley, and the foothills. So. I think just striking that's sufficient.
And I answered my own question on 104, so I'm good.
Good.
And I don't have anything else till 145. Under paragraph B, utility corridors, the last sentence reads, "A Northern California Power Agency transmission line also runs through the county along its southeast boundary." That's not correct. It really runs from the Stanislaus River right by Angels Camp, right through Salt Springs Valley, after crossing the Bear Mountain Ridge, down through Milton. So really what it crosses is the southwest part of the county.
Does it go clear through the county, or
Because
it
it starts
Goes
up
all
at,
clear through the county.
but it would be southwest and southeast, because that starts up at Spicer Reservoirs.
Well, I think it's slightly more west than east, but, yeah, it starts, it comes out of Collierville, doesn't it?
I think the problem is when you look at, if you think of Calaveras County, it's turned, and so the southeast side is actually what we sort of consider the south. The southwest would actually be that portion that butts up against Stanislaus County.
Yeah.
But maybe we just say the southern, along its southern boundary.
Why don't we say on the
Or,
right-hand
the- or
side?
Draw a line.
through the,
The right-hand side.
through the southern portion of the county?
It comes by Angels, goes right through.
Right.
Isn't there a map that goes along
Oh,
with that?
so it's pretty much east to west in the,
Yes.
Yeah, it goes
Yeah,
pretty
there-
much.
What
east
page
to
is that
west.
map on? Oh, right there, no.
I looked at it.
Anyway, I'm sure you can figure out just where that goes and fix it, but it doesn't go along the southeast boundary.
Okay.
Trying to make everything about your end of the county.
that does not qualify as a typo, however, so I'm still up on you, 2-1. I'm keeping score.
You just spoke first.
Oh, shoot.
So, should we just say along its southern boundary, or?
No, it doesn't go,
No, it runs east and west.
it runs east and west.
Yeah.
Did you want to see what Mr. Wooster drew for me? It's that pin line. You can have that if you want. So it actually goes.
Why don't you just put on there, refer to the map that Kelly wrote a line through?
Because there was another exhibit I thought that we had.
I did too, and I know I looked at it.
Yeah.
I love all these maps.
208. It's on page 208.
Whoa, really? Yeah, it's like Did you look at that?
Why don't we say
That
that it
would
runs
help.
through the southern part of the county?
Yeah. Yow.
Okay, are we moving on? Page 149, a typo.
What happened to David?
First
I
line,
had no chance.
first line, per state requirements, the location should be locations, because the verb is are identified.
Okay.
Okay, on page 155, under the table 29, the first paragraph says, per the 2015 LHMP, based on the preceding, the total potential value of losses due to flooding in the county on improved parcels is approximately $40.4 million, assuming a loss ratio of 0.76%, and considering the contents of the structures damaged. And I just have to confess, I don't see how the 40.4 million got calculated. And maybe I don't need to know, but somebody reading this might want to know.
So in the LHMP, a calculation was made, I'm not sure how they did that, but look at all of the existing improved parcels that are located within the flood zone. And based on the value of those homes and a loss ratio of 76% of the contents, that would be the value of what could be destroyed in worst case scenario. I'm not sure how that calculation was made. We pulled those figures from the LHMP.
0.75% of the improved values would be lost under this scenario. Is that what
I wonder
this is?
if that decimal point is in the wrong location. It should be 76%, not 0.76%. That would make more sense. Why would it be 0.75%? Let me verify that. That may be a typo.
That was a
Okay.
good catch.
Well, I think what threw me a little bit, it said, based on the preceding, which suggested to me if I was smart enough and worked through that table 29, I too could come up with 40.4 million, and I couldn't do it. So if it's based on the table, that's fine. Maybe we could explain how it derives from the table. If it's not based on the table, if it comes from something else, we need to strike the phrase based on the preceding.
Well, a loss ratio of whether it's 76% or 0.76%, is it fair to call that a ratio? And by the way, regardless of the decimal point, what are they talking about? What is the sentence talking about? Is it talking about the improvements? If they're talking about,
We're talking about contents inside the structure, the way that I read it.
In the structure itself.
In the structure itself.
in the structure,
Furniture, tools.
the potential...
Let me go back and verify, because I read it now, and it's like, that doesn't provide a lot of information to me either. So I'll go back.
Okay.
So, on page 157, on the table at the top, the count, comma, land and improved property, is that,
Count is the total numbers.
doesn't read right to me.
It's
Well, I think
it's
that's
awkward.
That's the question, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at this table, there's the total parcels. That would be the count.
So I don't think you need the comma or something. It's like, you know, the,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking.
it's the
this is
value.
just me.
Why don't we just strike count?
Yeah,
I
just,
think it- yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
agree. It's
The land
it's
improved property
weird.
value. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 158. In the table at the top of the page, or chart, the exact same thing is stated twice in the fourth and fifth boxes.
Yeah, I think that was, I think you pointed that out before.
I did. And also, the last part, addressing peak loads, water supply requirements and so forth, fits better if it's the fourth block, because it's another water supply matter. So it should go after coordination with groundwater agencies.
So repeat that, what,
He's suggesting that the address peak load water supply
Be
should
moved-
follow coordination with groundwater agencies, with the last item being
Okay.
the general location and extent.
okay.
And that should qualify as a typo, I think.
No.
I think that was operator
Oh,
error.
no.
Can we go back to 157 real quick?
Nope,
That-
sorry, we passed it. All done. Yes.
If you go back up there, and now that I reread it, that is supposed to say county land and improved properties. That comma is supposed to be a Y.
No.
No?
It's the count of the number of parcels.
So that one really bothers me, even if you deleted it, but I'll live with it, because we're not allowed to go back there. Today is,
Okay, page 161. At the very top of the page, the last sentence in the carryover paragraph, the last part, describes improvements at Shad's Reservoir. And then the last phrase says, CPUD plans to do these improvements by FY 12-13.
are they done?
I'll catch up to CPUD and see what their schedule is. How come this isn't done yet?
It may be, we just don't know it.
We're slowed down here, page 162. And if I'm correct, this will qualify as a typo. In the middle of the page, there's a sentence that says, "The Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Basin Authority, paren GBA, and paren, is a public agency which was created as a joint powers of authority." I question whether the word "of" should be there.
No, it
No.
JPA?
Yeah, this should be a joint powers authority.
That's not a typo. That's a language usage issue, as is grammar issue. Totally different.
Just keeping score over there?
Yeah, but I've got my markers going.
But I think it's proper.
No, the
It's not, it's a
the
JPA.
term is a JPA, a Joint
Yeah.
Powers Authority. There's no of should be in there.
Okay, on page 167,
So we're going by fives now, not page by page.
and this will be CCWD figures. In the bottom part of the page, there's a table that's headed Water Demand and Supply, Existing and Projected CCWD. And going to the North Fork Stanislaus River, we have water supply acre feet per year. we have an average of approximately, say, 6,421, a maximum of 14,000, and a safe/firm of 14,000. And the same issue arises down on the last two, on the McCallum River Middle Fork and on San Antonio Creek, where on the McCallum we have an average of 0, a maximum of 200, and a safe/firm of 200. And on San Antonio, we have an average of 15, a maximum of 300, and a safe/firm of 300. And I think we discussed this before, but I was having trouble how you could have a safe/firm number that's the same as your maximum and way more than your average. So it looks like this is something that just should be double-checked with CCWD to see if this is correct, or what is correct.
I'm looking at the footnote D, and, well, C doesn't really apply. Footnote D, which defines what the safe firm is. It's the maximum that can be supplied from the system. I will double check with CCWD on that. I know we got these numbers from either the MSR, which was developed from data provided by the various water agencies reviewed by LAFCO. And that's their, my understanding, it's the total capacity that they could provide based on water rights and flows in the river. They may not be for the, the Middle Fork of the American River right now, they're not using any water from that. But they could if they developed it based on the rights and the flows within the water, in the river itself.
Well, you're already asking them about something else, so you can
Yeah.
just add this to your list. Just check.
Okay, similar questions arise on page 171 with respect to UPUD. Water demand and supply, existing and projected on the North Fork. And actually, there's an issue, why is the Stanislaus North Fork in there twice?
With different numbers.
Correct.
I think one's north and one's south. I think
No, the South Fork is in Tuolumne County.
There was a reason for that. What was that?
The North Fork is the county line.
oh, I'm sorry, Stanislaus, I was thinking California.
And the same question you had about the
The numbers,
average versus, okay.
yeah. My last one is on page 207, the very last sentence. Says all transmission facilities are PG&E. Should add or NCPA.
Anything else?
No.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to address the commission on the technical background report?
Nikki Williamson, just a little comment on the temperature changes for the climate change. There is a 2012 update on the California Climate Action Change website that does change those numbers from the 2006 numbers, and I think they're a little bit more in line with the numbers that
Do
you
you
read.
think it was, did you recognize them as the numbers that I read off from
They
the more recent report?
seemed more similar to what you read, yes. They are lower than the ones that were in the 2006. So if
And
you're
that's the
looking,
same website?
no, it's
that we're
it's
referring to?
the same website that was referenced in footnote 9 has an update in 2012.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, I'm taking a total, so if you found any, I'll put you on the list.
Typos?
Yes.
No. No, I don't worry about those because I know they'll find them.
Right.
I'm Colleen Platt, my Valley Springs. I might have, maybe I should have brought this up in circulation element, but I had to leave for a brief time this morning, so I wasn't sure if it should be in the element or the background report anyway, so I'll bring it up now. Let me see. Okay, I couldn't find any reference in the circulation element or the background report that refers to current LOS, level of service ratings, for existing conditions of Calaveras County local roads. See, we've got maps and we address the highways and the major connectors, but we don't address local roads. And the reason I think this is important is because according to our current general plan, 1996 County General Plan, RIM fees are based on county level of service local road assessments. So if you go to the 1996 Calaveras County General Plan circulation element, page 3-16, there's a long paragraph there, which I won't bore you with the whole thing, but it talks about the RTP, the different ways of measuring level of service standards on highways and roads, depending on what agency you are, there's different ways of measuring it. Then it goes down to the county includes the reduced average speed due to specific terrain and design of roads. Therefore, the more detailed county assessment may result in lower levels of service for county roads than the RTP determined level of service. And the important sentence is, the road improvement mitigation fees for county roads will be based on the county's more detailed analysis. A list of the most recently determined levels of service for county roads is attached in the circulation element appendix. Now, this is an item that Joyce emailed you a lot of information, so you might not have picked it up, but this was one paragraph in those pages of information. In 2005, they removed that circulation element appendix from the general plan. And that was the purpose of that was to make it easier to update those levels of service, so the public work could update those levels of service. But anyway, so it's so that was to be maintained by the Public Works Department and capable of being updated by resolution. And this was in an attempt to facilitate the updating of road level of service ratings. So many years ago, when we first learned about all this stuff, we obtained that Public Works Department list, and it's called the Calaveras County Road Services, Calaveras County Road Service Levels list. And this is a 20-page list dated April 27th, 1993. And that's the most recent list that we could obtain at the time. And the level of service ratings in it appear to date back to the early 1980s. So we keep harping on this level of service RIMP, trying to keep everything updated. And we have that in our general plan update now, to update the RIM fees and this and that. My concern is if those are based on this document, this is not referred to anywhere that I can find in the circulation element or the background report. Even though it was removed as an appendix, it still seemed like it either should be included or the reference to it should be referred to so that we can justify the RIM fees and have a basis for the RIM fees, because that's, they were based on this document. And it also addresses Joyce Teckel's concern that there be more accurate representation of the roads in this county, because at one time when I had more time, I actually went through this 20-page document, and it lists the levels of service for hundreds of roads and segments in the county, and there were actually 304 that were level of service D, E, F, or inadequate. So there's a number of roads in this county that aren't up to our current levels of service. So I think somehow, we need to reflect the existing conditions of the county a little bit more accurately, not only in vegetation and forests, but also in our roads, just to say what's out here. Robert Packinger got up earlier and he talked about, the lack of funding for maintenance and keeping up our levels of service of roads. So I think that should be accurately reflected. So for two purposes, both to help with the RIM fee program and levels of service connection, this should be mentioned in there at the very least, if not updated and done something with. So maybe you could discuss that somehow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Do you remember why they pulled that out of the current draft general plan?
No, I wasn't here. I mean, I was here at the time, but I wasn't involved in this. So this is just what Joyce had said in her documents that she sent you recently in 2005 County Resolution number 05-158, approving General Plan Amendment 2004-174, removed the circulation element appendix from the general plan and designated the contents of the appendix as a separate road service classification system to be maintained by the Public Works Department and capable of being updated by resolution. This was done in an attempt to facilitate the updating of road level of service ratings.
Rather than attaching it to a general plan amendment.
Having a part of the
Yeah,
general plan, you have to amend the general
Yes.
plan to just update the
Right.
tables,
Got it.
yeah.
Yeah, but I have the feeling that it really hasn't been updated because they've been busy doing a lot of other things. But that's why they
Well,
pulled
since
it.
1993, I think you might be right.
Yeah, maybe. So, but that's why they pulled it at the time. So anyway, it was pulled so many years ago, it was really hard to find at the time, and we finally got a list from Public Works, and it shouldn't be that hard to find because it's being referred to in your RIM fees and
Right.
this and that. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm Peter Race from Jenny Lynn. I agree with the lady a little bit. A lot of things needs to be updated. And by the way, you can, based on registered vehicles in the county, that's how the state determines how much money we get, for one thing. But the other thing I would like to bring out is that I just got interviewed by the Mexican TV station, and they were able to conduct the interview in English, compromise. They can speak Hungarian, and I speak Spanish. But I just got interviewed, and I gave them my opinion. But thank you. The other thing I want to mention, Mr. Tuno, is that when you get that information on global warming, I would like to also know the source of the numbers, whatever numbers you're going to get, or whatever planning director gets. I like to know the source of the numbers, whatever rate of increase they're predicting. And I'd be more than happy to bring you some folks' numbers also, but individuals and their qualifications of the global warming or cooling, whatever it might be, whatever part of this earth. But there are sources, definite numbers, recent numbers, that we'd be more than happy to share with this board. Thank you. But I want the name, rank, and serial number and the present position.
Anyone else?
Vicki Mills, table 55 on page 209. ID number H0008, Angels, and it listed as Utica Power Authority. It actually is Utica Water Power Authority, as I have been corrected many times by their secretary. So if you want to correct that in your table.
Is it Utica Water Power or Utica Water and Power?
They are Utica Water Power Authority.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marty Crane. At the risk of regressing back to the beginning of the day, several of us were out front as well when a reporter from Fox 40 came, and she was trying to interview, and we consistently just referred her to the recording that she'll see on local TV. She was lovely. I'm assuming she was Hispanic. But what I want to say is, when we make innuendo statements that, and I was able to do it in English, that too is demeaning and beneath this body. So I just have to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
When we do what?
Somebody made fun of me the way I talk.
Excuse me, Mr. Race, you're not at the podium. Is there anyone else? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the commission for, the point I heard was a discussion from Colleen about the need for an assessment or some record of the status, service levels for our local roads.
I'm unclear as to what should be done, if anything, in the background report or the general plan about that. I mean, I think I understand the concern that if your analysis of level of service on local roads hasn't been updated since 1993, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure it's a general plan problem. And that's where I'm
I think
kind of at a loss.
the issue is that part of the general plan for the circulation element, we're supposed to look at existing deficiencies as well as what we anticipate to accommodate future growth. The problem is that we don't have a list of existing deficiencies. This is not something that's recent. I requested that of Public Works. They said we don't have any such a thing. The practical way that we address this is when a project comes through, we require a traffic impact study or traffic impact analysis to look at the effects of the project on existing roads. And part of that analysis is determine, what roads are affected, what's the traffic flow going to be, what's existing traffic patterns, how are the roads currently able to handle traffic, and what would this do to those? And that's where the LOS standards come into play, that if you can't meet certain standards on those local roads or the more regional roads, then you either have to make those improvements to bring them up to that standard, or the project won't be approved. And that's a current general plan policy that we have. And it's more or less carried over into the circulation element, different wording but same intent. So those local roads would be reviewed as a part of any project proposal, and a determination made that if those local roads can't handle the traffic, then they need to make improvements to those roads or the project doesn't go forward. So we don't have anything at the general plan level that says, here's a list of all of our existing substandard roads and that need to be fixed. I think we all know that there are a lot of them out there. And that would be something that we would address on a case-by-case basis. If we had a list, I'd be happy to put it in, but we don't have a list. So there is no current recent data that shows here is a list of all the deficiencies in our road system.
Can I bring up a case that might be on point here? There was a developer who wanted to take some acreage on Pool Station Road, and he wanted to divide it to the point where I believe there were 4 new dwellings that were going to be built. Ted, you remember this?
Yeah, vaguely, but I don't remember.
And it was denied based upon the traffic. So when a road can't handle 4 more dwellings, and a lengthy road can't handle 4 more dwellings, it probably can't handle the dwellings that are on it right now, the traffic that's on it right now. So, I mean, that puts the county in a pretty damn tight spot. If we haven't got roads that can handle the traffic right now, then we are shut down as far as new development in a lot of areas. So how do we, in the general plan, address that problem, because in my mind, that denial never should have happened, 4 houses on a Pool Station Road being denied because of too much traffic. It didn't make any
It could have
sense.
just been that some people might have that much visitors on the weekend. 4 more is not very much.
It really gets to
There was
the
more to that.
the bottom line of the land use distribution pattern that we have. You know, if you compare the current general plan and the large areas of future single-family residential that's shown in yellow on that map, and the way it was explained to me when I first started was, even though that map may indicate that it could be suitable for future residential, the constraints based on roads, particularly roads, but also on water and sewage disposal capability, doesn't really mean that all of that can or should be developed in future single-family residential, whether it's 1, 5, or 20-acre parcels. And that really gets to the heart of the issue of the land use map, which we'll be getting to in the not-too-distant future, of, you know, should we lead people to believe that this area is suitable for 1 and 5 acre parcels or whatever size lots they should be. Because in reality, the roads can't handle it. There's not enough money to make the roads, you know, for either the county to fund those road improvements or for an individual developer to make those road improvements. So let's not fool ourselves and say all this is suitable for 5 acre parcels. It's not. That's going to be sort of the heart of the debate when we get into the land use map. But it boils down to the current standards we have in place that says that we will not approve a project if those roads can't handle it. And it may be that because they're already substandard, they can't handle the existing traffic. A lot of it isn't so much the volume of traffic, which is a part of a problem when you're looking at applying an LOS, level of service standard, to a rural road. It's more of a design issue of narrow, winding, twisty roads that don't allow a sort of a free flow of traffic. You've got to slow down because it's narrow and dangerous. You get stuck behind a slow vehicle. That's how LOS is measured. And it's sort of a false measurement in a way. LOS is really applicable in more urban settings or on, you know, broader roadways that carry a lot of traffic, and particularly at intersections. If you have to wait through 3 stoplights, you know, that's a serious LOS problem. And I've had numerous conversations with Robert about this, and while we use LOS in our thresholds for project approval, it's not necessarily the best measurement, but there is no other measurement for addressing traffic on rural roads.
Having a list like this.
So your example is exactly on point, you've got a project on substandard roads, and should we be approving any project out there, or do we want to change the standard? That really sort of gets down to the nuts of the issue.
What that raises for me is someone that's looking at purchasing some land in Calaveras County with an anticipation of subdividing it, and not knowing that the piece of land that they're buying is adjacent to or served by a road that is substandard.
Is that a disclosure in their real estate, in the purchase of their real estate? Probably not.
They would have no reason, they have nothing to disclose because there's no report or list that's what Colleen is saying. There's no list that exists.
And we wouldn't necessarily know that someone is buying, a realtor wouldn't know they're buying land to subdivide. They're just buying land, and there's no restriction to build a house on existing parcel. Someone has an existing legal parcel, and they can make it perk, and they've got water.
Regardless of the road.
Regardless of the road.
Right.
They get a building permit. It's ministerial. They meet the standards, it's ministerial. There's no discretion associated with that. But when they want to subdivide, even if it's a 2-way parcel map, that's when these discretionary rules come in.
That was a lot more to that project.
Yeah, so I think I certainly think such a list
Trust you, I just...
would be.
It would be great if we had it. We
Yes.
don't.
And how difficult would it be to produce one?
Well, it hasn't been done in over 20 years, so.
So, I think we're overdue.
Yeah.
Wow, You got your checkbook out?
You know, it's a matter of establishing the priorities.
I'm not
and the-
suggesting that we correct them all today. I'm suggesting that we identify them. I mean, how hard would it be? I don't, you know, it's 20 pages, but how hard would it be?
I'm not a traffic engineer, I don't know. I imagine it's probably pretty time-consuming.
I may not have heard correctly, but I thought I heard that one of the requirements for the circulation element is an assessment of the existing condition of the county's roads. And if that's true, and we don't have one, isn't it going to be viewed as mandatory that we get one?
Where are you referring to?
I'm referring to comments Peter made, which I may not have heard correctly, but I thought I did.
I don't remember saying that. What I did say was that when new development comes in, they need to analyze the impacts of their traffic on the existing road system. And so they do an analysis that shows, you know, I'm going to be increasing traffic on this road by 10 peak hour trips or whatever the number is. And because of the size and shape and design of this road, it can or cannot handle that. And that's something that a traffic engineer does, that the applicant pays for. I'm looking at the implementation program on roads and just seeing if there's anything that, so C-2A, as part of maintaining the roadway classification system, the county shall regularly review existing county roads, including the cost of general improvements, existing level of service, traffic volume, roadway conditions, et cetera, to identify if changes in roadway classification are warranted. Now, the roadway classification are the
Arterials, locals, regional, whatever, yeah.
That doesn't get to it.
No.
doesn't get to,
Condition.
and so maybe we want to consider adding a measure that says we're going to update our, whatever the name of that previous report
It
was.
sounded like it was going to be, it sounded like you were on the topic there, that why can't conditions simply be added to
Or level of service.
the assessment that's going on, whether or not that leads to a different level of service or not, or a different classification is depending on.
Yeah.
The
If I could
other-
ask Colleen what the name of that document was
Yeah.
again?
And the other thing while Colleen's coming up is that instead of looking at a roadway specifically from an individual project-by-project basis, you could also see sort of the cumulative, you know, like its level of service is bad from A to Z, and then you've got these other, you know, potential development areas in between. So, I mean, it just, you know, in terms of disclosure and information about existing conditions, I think it is important. I'm sorry, Colleen, go ahead.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Yes, and there is a list, so we can't say we don't have a list. There is a list. It's
Right.
ancient, but there is a list. So, I mean, you could just copy this list and put it in there and say, here it is. The question was, it's called the Calaveras County Road Service Levels.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, with that list, I think
Yeah.
that list should be in here.
Yeah,
That
it's got all
existing list,
the...
that is our list. It's an old list.
As of that time,
Yes.
those were the levels of services. And I
Yes.
doubt if they've been improved tremendously
Right.
since then. So this would at least be
But then also, we're
something.
going to, you know, we think it's important to update that list.
It's important to update, and also the rim fees are based on this. So if you don't have this,
Yeah, how do you, well,
What
what
is-
Peter would be saying
Yeah.
is that you'd look at it from a project-by-project basis.
but the whole rim fee program is based on this list. I mean, that's what it says.
Yeah.
So,
Because the
I'm
road,
just saying what
the
it
RIM
says.
program is a list of improvements the county wants to make. We've
Right.
identified these specific improvements, we've got a cost for it, we've broken it down by the future development that we're allowing through our zoning and general plan, and it's a portion to that future development. So there's a specific cost, there's a specific identification of what projects are going to be built. So
but the rim fee, the rim fee, this is in our general plan right now. The road improvement mitigation fees for county roads, plural. general, will be based on the county's more detailed analysis, this list. So
Okay.
the program itself is based on that.
But we also, you stick around, because
Okay.
we heard from Mr. Pettinger earlier that confirming that RIM fees are not for maintenance.
Right,
Right.
has
That's
nothing
for
to do with
improvement.
maintenance.
And
Yeah.
yet, so we got two different issues here. We have an issue of maintenance on a road just to get it to where it's supposed to be.
No, that's not maintenance.
That's improvement.
That's improvement. If you're widening a road.
No,
if
I'm
you're
not talking
straightening out
about
turn-
widening, I'm talking about whatever was wrong, for example, with Pool Station, that it couldn't take another car on it. That was a maintenance issue, not an improvement issue.
No, I
No,
think that
no.
was
In-
like
in the
straightening out.
parlance of transportation planning, maintenance would be things like
Slurry
cleaning
seal.
out, sealing a road, cleaning out
Potholes.
ditches or
Cleaning culverts.
culverts.
That's not repaving?
That's,
A repavement would be,
Maintenance.
yes, would be maintenance.
Sure.
But widening or straightening,
I get
that's
that.
improvement. And what I think, my understanding of the process and the RIM list, those are improvement requirements, they're not maintenance requirements.
and that's what Mr. Peckinger said this morning.
Yeah.
No, I understand that that's what Mr. Pettinger said, but I,
And so I believe that I wasn't here when that pool station project was denied, but it was based on a need for improvements to the road, not just maintenance.
for 4 houses.
Yeah, but I think too, wasn't it that it was 100 acres and it was the septic and well?
There
and it
could have
was-
been
There
other
were
things.
number, but that is a standard that we have in our general plan right now, that if the road can't handle the traffic, then they either have to be improved or the project doesn't go forward.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah.
So we could go back to the circulation element and modify that measure to also add that we update the road service levels list.
We were going to pass the circulation element on to the board, were we not?
Well, we made that decision earlier today, but if we wanted,
We can-
it's not,
we can amend
it's
our-
not over yet.
Right.
We still have the ability to go back and add that language if you wanted to.
Well,
We can do it now.
can we do it now?
We can
And
do it
then-
now.
And then we've got a package that we can
That's
send
right.
on.
We can do it now.
Right.
Let's do it now.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
how would it read?
So I would just add at the end,
I'm sorry, I'm going
So
to have
this
to
is-
ask you to go to the page and all that.
it's on page C18. This was item 2, item E2 of the packet. C18.
Again, please.
C18.
C18.
Go ahead.
Program C2A, the first one under roadway
Yes.
transportation. There's a long list of things we would look at, and then the result would be to identify if changes in roadway classification are warranted, and I would add, and to update the road service levels list.
Yeah.
And to update the level of service.
Road level service
Road.
list.
Road,
Road service levels
road
list.
service level.
List. Okay. Then, if you felt it was appropriate, we could certainly add that 1993
I think we should.
list to the background document. I'm not sure of the value at this stage, 23 years old, but.
Well, at least if someone would look at it and say, well, what's the existing road level service list that they have access to it?
And Public Works may even be able to look at that and say, well, we've done improvements here, here, and here in the
Yeah.
last 20 years.
Right, and update it. Do we need another motion for the, or can that just be part of the?
What are you thinking, Nat? What's best for you?
One motion is.
No, do we need another one for the circulation?
circulation, what change
Since
we
we
just
already made a
made.
change again.
I think probably cleaner that way.
Okay, so we'll do it, it's easy. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the changes and additions.
To program C-2A
That.
I'll
Okay.
second.
of the
Been-
circulation.
Of the circulation, all right, so it's been moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay.
So is there also, is there consensus to include the existing
I thought.
level of service on county roads in the technical background report?
Yeah, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So are there any other discussion about the technical background report at this point? And are we just holding on to this for now because we think there's going to be further additions
Well, there
to it?
were at least two things.
So we're not
there was
pushing it
economic-
upstairs to the board yet?
Well, the whole package will be pushed upstairs when we're all done.
Okay,
Because
so-
we may come back, as we've done already, and say, oh, gee, that brings up an issue that we discussed last meeting, let's
Right.
go back and change that. So what we're doing is we're posting what we're calling the Planning Commission recommended draft of each element as we wrap those up. And then, for example, when we went back and revisited the resource production element, we just reposted the next version. But whenever we're sort of done with this work, like we finished up the circulation element and the conservation element today, we will post those as soon as I can make those final changes and clean it all up. And those will be posted on our website. And then at the very end, when we're all done, the whole thing will be packaged up and sent forward to the board as a recommendation.
Okay.
And so probably we'll take one last final vote, formal vote, to say, yes, we're
On the whole
recommending, on
entire
the whole
package.
thing. Maps, community plans, all of it. So just so I have, we've got, several little minor changes, but some of the things that are a little bit more substantial. And let me just run through the list and we decide how we want to handle it. On page 43, there was some numbers about the ag, and I was going to talk to Kevin to sort of clarify that. Kevin Wright, the ag commissioner. On page 85 and 86, it's had to do with the air quality data, and I'll look at that website and see what else is out there and update
Could you
that.
stop there for a second? Because a question I have is, as a California governmental entity, are we bound to cite California official state reference source material?
I don't know that we're bound by anything, but it seemed to me it makes sense. It's the most logical source data that we would use. They're the ones that are going to be, that's going to be sort of the standard by which we're measured. So why not use that data?
Well, the why not's another question, but if that's what if we have to have that to pass muster, I understand.
There was a question about what the county designated scenic highways are on page 92. I'll figure out where that data came from and either provide a footnote or explanation.
There was a deletion on page 88, too.
Yeah, there's a number of just minor.
She's skipping over
I'm
those.
just doing the ones. I'll make those changes, but the ones that need to come back with further information other than just those little minor corrections. Let's see. There was on page 155, based on the preceding and that list of the numbers, how they came up with that. What does that really mean? So I'll look into the LHMP and figure out what that paragraph actually really means.
155?
155.
Right.
The completion of the tie-in at Shads in 2012 and 13. We'll see what CPD says about that. And I need to check with the agencies on a couple of other items.
The tables.
The tables, yes. Other than that, I think they were just minor little edits, typos, or add a word, delete a word here or there to clarify. And we'll add an additional table with a list of, or maybe make that as, I think, maybe I'll do that as an appendix. Since it's 20 pages long, we can add that as an appendix.
Sure.
That helps me with not having to renumber all of the tables.
Well, speaking of which, when you make your corrections, and give us those pages in the packet, can you just give us those pages and anything that changes pagination-wise? I think there's enough white space here and there that if something gets bumped, it doesn't bump 20 pages, it bumps 2 or 3.
Hopefully not, yeah.
But just giving us a packet that has those few pages in it, and then we can do this.
Yeah, just slips you in. Yeah.
And they only have to download a few pages as well.
and we don't have to spend a lot of money on printing.
Right.
Right.
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty.
So then we'll just bring back those few pages sometime in the next couple of weeks as we make those changes. So as far as then the continued schedule, I'm close to being done with the public facilities and services element, but I won't have those done by the end of the day today. So I think it might be best that we not hold a meeting next week. I don't really have anything else general plan-wise to discuss since we were able to get through all this today. And our next general plan meeting will be our regularly scheduled meeting on the 24th. I don't know if we have anything else on that agenda. We do have another item. So next meeting would be 24th, and we'll have the public facilities services element out next week sometime, so there's plenty of time to review that. And then we're working on the safety element. Probably won't get that done until early April. So once the safety element is done, then all the text is done. We've got the glossary still, a few changes there, if there's any words that you think ought to be in the glossary. But again, I want to, if it's a word that's defined somewhere else, we don't need to add it to our glossary. It's just if we use the term in a specific way, or it's a unique term that maybe people aren't familiar with, we'll put it in the glossary. But I don't want to have it a repeat of Webster's or all the definitions contained in state law. Then the next task will probably be, and I'm debating, and maybe I can get some feedback from you, whether or not you want to address the land use maps, the map first, or get into the community plans. That's going to depend on how I focus my workload over the next several weeks, is to start getting together with community groups to revisit the community plans, or I start, going through all of the several hundred requests for different land use designation changes.
The ones that have been collected since what, 2010?
Anything that has come in, well, it would be response to the most recent draft map. So anything that's come in since December of last year, December of 2014.
And do you have a preference? What makes more sense to you?
I really don't. I don't know if, part of me thinks that, gee, if we look at the maps first, it sort of makes the community planning process almost sort of after the fact, because that's where, there's going to be some real interest there.
But a lot of these community plans are at ground zero, right?
Well, we're only going to be looking at the ones that already had a draft that was previously reviewed or close to adoption. And I think we looked at the District 2 communities and San Andreas.
Okay, now, with respect...
And Rancho Calaveras.
With respect to communities that aren't in that status, subsequent to community plan approval, let's say, we go to the map. The map gets adjusted by however it gets adjusted. Then any community plan thereafter kind of has to live with the map the way it reads then, correct? They don't have the flexibility of affecting the map. They have to live with.
Well, the map could change.
The map can change.
Subject to a community plan.
Subject to adoption of a new community plan.
Right.
Then there's no reason not to go with community plans first.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll save the map for last, and we'll do the community plans will be sort of the next, that will be the...
After public facilities and
Yeah.
safety. Okay.
And safety, I've got Amy working on that. There are a lot of very technical review requirements that we have to go through to meet the various requirements of state law. And she's working on that right now, but probably won't get it done until sometime early next month. So we've got a little bit of wait on that. So we probably have a little bit of a lull in our weekly meetings. I'll be meeting with as many community groups as I can, in local communities to re-up the discussion on community plans. And that's going to take some time. So
Okay.
once we get through the public services element and safety, then we'll see where I'm at the process at that point in time. But next meeting will be on the 24th then for the general plan.
Okay.
All right.
And then I had a request that I would like to make, and that is that we look at putting on the agenda to visit PD, because we would like to see about removing it in our upper portions of District 3. I would like to have that discussion before we get to the community plans and land use, or make it at least a part of the maps process, so that we're not duplicating this process later, because this is something that we're definitely going to try to do. Peter had mentioned that you possibly have an issue in your district that you want to be looking at PD on too? No?
Well, yes, but that's a zoning issue. It's an overlay, right?
Right, the PD issue is
And definitely, we are, you know, it's like we replaced, that's the intent, is that the community said yes to design, an additional design review district as in exchange for PD.
So we're looking at removing PD, and, I mean, I'm not going to go into a huge discussion here.
No, but I'm just
but-
wondering where in that, where appropriately that discussion belongs.
Well, normally, and Lisa and I spoke about this at the lunch break a little bit, just to understand how the process would work. That is a zoning issue and would be handled as a part of, or could be handled as a part of the county-wide zoning review to bring the zoning maps into consistency with the general plan once we adopt the general plan. So the next thing we need to do is make sure our zoning ordinance is consistent, and I want to do the map part right away, so there's not a lag time, you know, having conflicting land use designation and zoning designation. That creates all kinds of problems. So I really want to get that map, you know, revised and brought before you and the board as soon as possible after adoption of the general plan. We could address overlays at that same time, including the, you know, removal or keeping of PDs in certain communities, or it could be handled as a separate zoning matter. So the commission has the ability to bring forward requested changes to the zoning ordinance, including the maps, by a resolution of the commission. And if a majority of the commission here felt that was something you wanted me to consider while we're working on the general plan as a separate action, then we could bring back a draft resolution for your consideration. I wouldn't recommend it at this time, just given everything else we have on our plate right now. But it's certainly your choice, and if it's something that the constituents really want, then that's something that you as a commission have the ability to direct me to bring something back for your consideration.
But what I would be concerned about is the time lag between completion of the general plan update and revision of the zoning ordinance that addresses PD. In the interim, you basically have, like has happened in McCollum, you have a double whammy. I mean, you've got a design review and you have PD. That's the sort of situation that we are trying to alleviate. Mm-hmm. So what would concern me, I mean, I don't know if we want to do it right now, but I am certainly in favor of, once we sort of get the general plan update under our belt, is to immediately sort of address that, because we'll already have intent, we'll kind of know where we're going, the communities have already and have weighed in on this issue, and that even if that gets implemented in advance of the whole ordinance getting revised, I think would be important to remove that burden.
So I don't, for us and those that we've talked to, we feel like doing it while we're in the middle of the general plan is the right time to do it, because it's going to be going under environmental review and CEQA, and we want to make sure that those things are in place as we go through this process. So our preference in my district is that we get to have the discussion on it. How you choose to handle with what's going on in your district is totally up to you.
Well, it makes sense to do it. I mean, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You're not going to look at just PD in your area. We should look at PD countywide.
Well, I mean, I'm making a request for my district. If you want to add on to that, that's fine. But we felt that doing it through the general plan update process was the right time to do it, because we're updating the maps, we're updating our zones, we're updating all of those things, and we felt that now was the time to do it. We're looking at the community plans. So I am making a request to the other commissioners that we...
And I don't disagree with you, Lisa. I'm just saying is that once we finish public facilities, we finish safety, we review the community plans, we look at the map, then let's queue that up.
Okay, so that's all I'm doing, is asking that as we're working through this process, that we bring it up before we close up our work on the general plan update. Peter would know when the best time would be to try and work on this issue, even having discussion on the issue, much less.
Why wouldn't the discussion about your PD issues be a part of your community plan?
Because it's a zoning overlay. It's
Well, the reality is that the PD is really imposed through the existing community plan for Arnold. It's a policy in the Arnold community plan, and it was implemented by having this overlay zone. I don't think that a zoning ordinance amendment that would remove the PD would necessarily be covered by the general plan EIR unless there was specific policy language in the plan, and that may be something we want to consider, is adding some type of policy that, and I don't know what it would be at this point, but somehow addresses the use of plan development zone, and maybe it's more limited rather than as a restriction, as more of a way to accommodate
an opportunity.
an opportunity. Thank you.
Yes.
So I guess right now, it's not an agenda item. I'm asking for it to be one into the future so we can discuss whether or not it's something we want to do, because it's not been publicized. I don't want to get us into trouble here having too much discussion on it. So I'm asking if we can have a small little portion on the agenda that has a little study, little session discussion on it as to how we would want to even move forward with it. That's all I'm asking for at this point.
We could do that?
Yeah,
Basically have a study session on the PD?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then from there, we'll get a
We can
better
decide
idea of...
timing.
Yes.
Sure,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
yeah. Anything else? All right, this is a public comment period, last time.
I'm Peter Reyes from Jenny Lynn. I appreciate the work you guys are doing. I'm envious because you have a lot more patience than I would ever have. The only thing, one thing that is missing somehow is you can plan all you want, but I would like to know, and a couple of people who are into the like fire district, water districts, and so on, are they going to be capable or have the means, finances, so on, capability to coordinate and provide whatever service that you hope to achieve? Because I have not heard any of the public service end of it. Someplace along the line, hopefully, you brought an issue that whole thing should be looked at. We should at least ask them, have an input. I don't care if it's ambulance service, a fire district, water district, whatever. Do they have the capacity to create paradise the way this body think it's going to be? Because especially when you start bringing in a high-density, low-income Section 8 homes, that's going to make a big difference. I don't care what services you're talking about, but it does going to make a big difference. Who's going to provide it? Where the money's going to come from? You can all have fantasies, but it would be nice to get some reality from the service providers. Thank you.
Bill McManus, Calaveras Project. Because you guys did such good work today, you get a cookie, which I wasn't going to do, but you worked for it. We're going to have one more episode of the Truth Tour, which, as you know, is my effort to keep the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commissioners kind of on the same page, because apparently there's not a lot of communication between the two, and sometimes the avenues of information dissemination in this county are less than reliable. First on the Truth Tour today was a comment that was printed in the papers and made in chambers by Supervisor Edson, and he responded to a question relating to whether we could ban marijuana in Calaveras County. Supervisor Edson responded that he didn't think that the county would be able to afford enforcement of a ban. Now, considering all the requirements of 266, I think the bigger question is, can you afford to even process and accommodate marijuana in this county, given that it's going to be several years before the revenue stream actually hits this county. That was information that was given at the meeting on the 16th. At the same time, I'm sure you're all aware of it, and I don't know, but I'll be redundant. When it comes to financing activities like this, bans or whatever, really it's as simple as having an administrative penalty section in the ordinance. One that you may see in the near future is an administrative penalty that any person who violates this chapter should be guilty of separate offense for each and every day or portion thereof. The violation is committed, permitted, or continued in addition to the actual abatement and/or administrative cost incurred by the county. Any person who has been issued a notice in order to abate public nuisance shall be assessed an administrative penalty in the amount of fill in the blank. Different counties have different amounts. Right now, the most frequent limit is $2,500 a day, and that's all set forth. So abating or enforcing bans does have an answer. You can get the money for that. Item 2 on the Truth Tour today is something that Supervisor Oliveira commented about at a meeting, somehow suggesting that if you were to attempt a ban, that it would be overturned. Now, as I've related to this commission many, many times, and to the Board of Supervisors, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of cities in California that have bans in effect on marijuana activities within their jurisdictions. There are many dozens of counties that have done the same thing. At this point in time, over the last several years while this activity has been ongoing, not one ban has been overturned. In fact, any ban that has been challenged in court has been upheld at the Superior Court level, at the appellate level, and at the state Supreme Court. The citations have been given to you, the recital, it's all been given to you, you've seen it before. The truth is, if you want to do something, you can do it. It's clear in the state constitution that counties, cities and counties, have complete and total control over land use within their jurisdiction. That comes straight from the state constitution. It is not a long ways away from the Constitution. It's in it. So you don't have to take a tortured trail to arrive at that. So I know it's information I've given you before. I notice some of you don't carry the blue folder that I gave you a little over a year ago, like 15 or 16 months, but if you look in your purple folder, you will find this information. I just bring it to your attention to refresh your memory and let you know what your compadres are doing on the Board of Supervisors, and I will likewise report this back to them next week. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, in that case, I believe we are adjourned.